So what we're discussing today is vendor negotiation. 3 specific ways where you can negotiate directly with the seller. Now, why would these sellers come to you? Well, here's the truth. They don't actually like estate agents in many cases. I don't know why. They've had a bad experience in the past. That was their past. Agents are pretty good, actually, to be fair. However, they had some bad experience. So for this reason, they rather work with a person independently rather go to an estate agent. That's what they want to do. Also, why direct-to-vendor deals are really good for you is because there is no for sale board saying, oh, look, here's a property for sale. At the end of the day, no one really knows that the property is for sale unless they get to know the vendor. So the heat is off the market as well, and there's less competition. So the first one is what we call at Premier Property, I'm on your side. Now, let me explain how the I'm on your side actually works for you. So this works in specific situations. So you make the vendor feel that you are doing the best deal for them. Now, to be fair, at Premier, we always work with a win-win solution. The win-win situation, though, sometimes isn't what the seller expects the win-win situation to be. You've got to demonstrate and explain what the win-win situation is for them. And how this works the best is put yourselves for a moment in their shoes. Put yourself in their specific scenario and really aim to assess. You'll never understand because you're never in that situation, or you don't want to be in that situation. So don't say to them things like, oh, I understand, because you don't understand. To be fair, that's quite patronizing for people, let's be honest. Yeah. However, what we're saying is assess the situation. Let me share with you here a specific case study. So this is 131 Leek Road. This is in the northeast of the country. This property here is a mid-terraced house. You can see it right in front of your screen. I want to share this situation with you so you get an example of it and a feel of the kind of scenarios that you can find and what you can do with it. Now, let's start from the beginning. So this property, we found it through our leafleting strategy. So that is where we send out leaflets. So in this leaflet strategy, the person picked up the leaflet and they called us. It's a property that was tenanted. However, it was the landlord who picked it up. Because the landlord was visiting, as the landlord visited, they saw the leaflet and they thought, we'll give them a call, find out. Now, the tenant in there had really run the property down really badly. Yet he was living there. And actually, he was okay with the landlord. A bit of an odd situation. It was a very friendly tenant, yet he had really wrecked the property. And now the seller, they were wanting to get the tenant to move on. And the tenant was quite happy to move on. They said, yeah, sure, find me another place and I'll go there. I'm quite easy to do that. So very strange, friendly tenant, yeah, living in a property that he's wrecked. We negotiated with the seller. So his pain was that he had this property. It was the back end of his portfolio. So he wasn't necessarily, motivated by not having any money because they had other properties and they had a business. What he wanted to do was sell this property because it was a bit of a pain for him. Because of the tenant, because of the condition of the property, he didn't really want to refurbish it again. He just wanted to pump the money from the sale of the property into his business. So what we did, so how we found the solution for him is, well, how about we help you to help your tenant to find a place? How about you don't need to renovate this property? We'll renovate it for you. We'll buy it as it is. Now, the property is not going to be mortgageable in the condition that it is. That's okay. We'll buy it with cash or like cash is short-term finance. And we also said, we can work to a time frame that works for you. It's okay. We'll have an exchange and a completion date. And if we need to move the completion date forwards or backwards, we can do that for you. So do you notice how we're finding a solution for the seller and we're being the easiest people possible? And we bought the property with short-term finance. We then renovate that property, full renovation, and this is now a under-the-radar HMO. And in terms of the net income, we're typically getting around £800 per calendar month net with a lovely property which we bought for 105k. So, second scenario is the vendor JV. Now, how does the vendor JV work? Well, this is when you're actually joint venturing with the seller. So, in fact, they're not selling, you are joint venturing with them and you're both making money from that property. Now, how do we make sure that we take the academic out of the way and make it practical? Well, what I've realized is over my 30 years of investing so far, that there are specific scenarios that will work for a vendor JV. So that you're not wasting time and you're using your time effectively to really be in front of the right person. The best vendor profiles are these. the property has been on the market for over a year. If the property hasn't been on the market for over a year, the seller hasn't got the motivation yet. And secondly, for you, you know that it's a vetted deal that you can actually do something with that owner. You can explain certain things. If it's less than a year, they still have to unfortunately go through that pain of not being able to sell that property. The second thing, the property is unencumbered. So just for clarity, meaning that the property doesn't have a mortgage on it. That's really important because now the seller can make the decision without having going to any lenders. And this is the criteria. So you find a property that is unencumbered as well. And on top of this, the seller has no money. They need the money. So they are asset rich and they're cash poor. That's the type of seller that you're looking for. Let's discuss a little bit more about the seller. So these are usually people that have had a property for a very long time. It can be their residential, usually it is their residential. This property has increased in value over time. As you know, that property values can double every 10 years. So the value has gone up. The seller might have been living in that property for 40, 50 years. It could be an investment property as well. Usually it's a residential. And the value has shot right up and there's no mortgage on it. The mortgage has been cleared. So these people are usually in their senior years, usually sort of 50 plus, 60, 70, these kind of ages. They normally don't have a big pension. Some of them are retired or semi-retired, or their job isn't really paying them that well. So they're in a bit of a financial situation where they don't really have a lot of income. However, they're sitting on a lot of equity. They also aren't property investors or developers. So again, another tick box criteria. If someone is a savvy investor developer, well, they're probably not going to be able to do this with you. So you want someone who's not really that property savvy. Look for the low-hanging fruit, the ease of getting a deal negotiated. So when you get these ticks, tick, 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 in this way, you know that you've got much more chance of actually getting something done in real life, because this is all real life stuff. You're creating a win-win situation, just like we've already discussed. So all the things that we discussed earlier apply, however, it's a different scenario. And your aim is to do a joint venture with the property of the seller, so they don't necessarily have to sell, they'll joint venture with you, and then you can negotiate something, either a sale or a hold, whatever works for you. Now it's time for scenario number 3. And this one is the portfolio landlord hack. And of course, you know what I'm going to say next, this is a real deal. So this is the opportunity for you to negotiate multiple deals. Now, if you're negotiating one, there's no harm in you negotiating more. Have fun with it. Because remember, the legally binding contract happens when you exchange contracts. And if you can get more than one, why not? And what usually happens is you end up getting more than one because you had a go at this. Yeah. So whether you're kind of new to this or whether you're an experienced investor, it doesn't really matter. Give yourself a chance and let's go large. So the criteria for this, the seller has been investing for a long time and they built up a portfolio over that period of time. Secondly, they feel that legislation is making it difficult for them. There's so many people out there, right, where the renters reform bill that's come in and all the different changes that are happening, it's really scaring people when people are becoming fearful out there. You see, the wild west of the private renter sector has gone. And what is left is professional people like you who are still in the game. And which means there's an even bigger pool of tenants, there's an even larger demand, and there's even more motivated sellers. So you want to jump into this one. Also, think of the age group. They're over the age of 55. Now, there's usually a couple of things that's happened here. The person has built up a portfolio, they've been a business person, they've done it their way, and their legacy, their kids usually, end up in professional environments or doing various different types of jobs, and they don't want the portfolio anymore. Because the mistake, unfortunately, that investor made was he didn't get the kids in or the family in quick enough. So they don't value the portfolio, they don't even want the portfolio, and this senior person is left with this portfolio where no one really wants it. And what's he or she going to do with it? Because they've only got so many years. Yeah, it's a common issue that's happening in the current climate team. The next thing is they've accumulated properties over time. So these are landlords with properties of more than 10 properties. So you're focusing on landlords with more than 10 properties, and they could have 3 digits as well. Their properties have an extremely low loan to value, or they're unencumbered. They could have no mortgage on them. So remember, if somebody isn't in that criteria, not that it can't be done, it just means that there'll be more negotiation, it may or may not be a deal. When you have this criteria, then the deals become even more acceptable for them. So the process. The first thing is you show them that you're an investor and you're in the same peer group for them. There's no point going to them and saying, oh, it's my first property I'm buying, because they won't treat you seriously. Now, you could be buying your first property, that's okay. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you want to come across as a professional. You discuss with them logically. You negotiate with logic, not the emotion. So these are savvy people. These are business people. They understand property. They'll probably be in property much more than you have in many cases. Also, you want to be able to show them that you can do multiple deals. Now, remember one of my sayings. Rather than I can't afford it, it's a case of how can I afford this? So let me show you a real example and let me show you how we actually negotiate this deal right from the beginning. So this is the Liverpool portfolio. This is actually sourced by one of my mentees. Now, I don't invest in Liverpool before this. I've now started investing in Liverpool because now we have a portfolio there. So my criteria is we'll jump into any place, any area where we buy minimum of 5 properties. I've negotiated with my sourcer through to the other sourcer. I've then said to my sourcer, is it okay if I speak to them directly? And because we're on the same page, that's absolutely fine. So I've then helped them to negotiate the deal. As a sourcer, you don't have to do everything. You just do the initial part, really. So my mentee did the initial part. I've now then taken that over, and now we're negotiating with the letting agency. In the letting agency, what it is there's a portfolio that's being sold by one of their clients, and their client has 53 properties. These 53 properties, just like what I share with you, are run down. They've got around 7 or 8 bad tenants in there that aren't paying the rent. There's a couple of empty properties. The rest of them are rented, but they're all on very low rental figures, and the rental figures haven't gone up for the past 10 years. Also, they don't want to ask for the higher rentals because the properties are in a poor condition. Although it's all cosmetic, however, they're not very nice properties, really tired. People are living in there at the lower rentals just because they got a lower rental. We've then assessed them and we found out what the real market value is, and the prices that he actually wants are full market value. So in this area, those properties sell for typically around £140,000 each. So he wants £140,000 each. Yet the properties are in very tired condition. So what we've done is we've actually worked out what the properties are valued in the condition that they actually are. Then what we've done is we've factored in refurbishment in that. Then what we've done is we've then created a margin. We've worked out 3 margins, like, intend and must. So we worked it out on a 10% margin, we worked it out on a 20% margin, and we also worked it out on a 30% margin. So I go back to the letting agent and I let them know the kind of figures that we're looking at. And the straight answer is, Cam, there's no way they're going to accept that. You got to keep your feet on the ground and really keep to your remit. So what I then say to them is, okay, I say, fair enough. What properties does he have where they are a real problem for him? Which are the most problematic properties? Can you get me an outline of those? So what they do is they get me a list of 7 properties, and these 7 are problematic for them. So I say to him, would he like a fast sale on these 7 where he could capitalize on his investment? Capitalize on his investment, not sell the properties. However, it's got to be at this price, and I give him the margin of 20%. He said, yeah, we'll do that as long as you do it really fast. In my experience, they always want it really fast. The really fast is never really fast. Yeah? Because they just have these ideas in their head which aren't actually doable in the real world. So you say, yeah, okay, I'll do it really fast, that's fine. At this point, I go and visit the properties. By the way, all you got to do is follow this system. You could be right at the beginning of your journey, it doesn't matter. You can do this stuff. How you come across makes a big difference. So I view these properties, have a good look around what needs doing, nothing much needs doing. There's a little bit of damp on the back of the kitchen wall, which again, we make a note, we'll rectify that. And then what happens is I come back and I look at the figures and I say, sorry, you told me that the properties had minor works required. You said that there was the odd door that was falling off. They gave us a list, the schedule of works. The schedule of works that you've given compared to the schedule of works I've got are completely different. It's going to have to be 30% discounted. Now at this point, we've already got the sale agreed. Solicitors are instructed. So the sale is going through, they can see that. and I've gone back and I said, sorry, that 20% has got to be 30%, and I've given that figure. Like, Cam, you can't do this right now. I said, well, it's the different schedule. If it was the same schedule of works, I agree. Here's my schedule of works, here's the photos, and here's what you said. Yeah, fair enough. I said, it's got to be 30% for these 7 terrible properties. And I can't believe how these people are living in those places, if I'm honest with you. So he goes back to the seller. Seller's irate now. No, you can't do that. I said, can I speak to him? He wouldn't speak to me. I said, can we set up a Zoom meeting or a phone call? He doesn't want to speak to me. He only wants to speak through the letting agent. I'm like, that's fair enough. I said, look, if you want it, it's 30%. This is what it is. There are terrible properties. I will take them off him. I will do it fast, but it's got to be 30%. And this is the price. So it's 30%. But he can see that the way we're performing, he understands, the letting agent understands that we're very professional people. You will come across very professional when you do it like this. So now the letting agent person, the estate agent, is on your side. Why would he go to anybody else when he's got the easiest investor possible? So now we've bought those properties and they're just being renovated now. I will actually share some of that with you guys as well on how that works as well.